What is up, YouTube? It has been a minute, man. It's probably been since the last summer since I've actually put anything out, really. And a few things have changed over the summer. And I meant to put this footage out a while back, though, but there's just so much of it. I've been busy, time's flown by. So here's what you missed over the summer. You can watch me as I prep the car for Power Tour in this video, really, and prep it for that summer. There's a lot of things that changed here. The last thing you saw is probably that T56 upgrade, right? So I want to walk through a few more things that I do for that upgrade and just kind of show some of the big changes to the car. Thought you might enjoy it, so stick around and you can check this out. So one of the first things I had to do here to get that T56 in the car and really prep the car for Power Tour is to change out the center console for something that actually allows you to put that stick shift H pattern shifter in there. You can see here we have that forward and backward park reverse neutral drive shifter here that you would have had for the 4T or 4L60, and of course that's not going to work here for this swap. So I wanted to try and figure out how I'm going to make this thing fit in this car, and I didn't want to take out this whole center console and just make this all from scratch. So I started taking this thing apart here, trying to figure out what I'm going to do here to make this work, and ultimately I ended up just pulling the whole thing out and just scrapping it. I saved a few pieces of it here and there. Cup holders especially, you can't have Power Tour without cup holders. I mean, you could, but who would want to do that? So yeah, if you're doing a build like this, definitely recommend getting cup holders for Power Tour if you're going to do that. It's a long drive, a lot of days of it, so try to make your car as comfortable as possible. And this car sees a lot of road trips. It doesn't just do Power Tour. I take this car on all sorts of trips here. It definitely gets its miles on it. So I wanted to make sure it's comfortable, something I can just hop in the car, put an energy drink next to me, and then just cruise around with it without having to worry about it spilling all over the place. So cup holders, definitely recommended. Really easy to install here too. You just kind of pop them out, pop them in, make the hole for it, and just slide them in there. So with that all out of the way, we can go ahead and start making this thing actually fit there physically. So you can see we got the transmission sort of in that hole, but the hole is kind of small. It rubs a little bit on the transmission, and the shifters or the parking brake handle is actually in the way here too. So I had to move that, relocate that. So dig out some more of that trans tunnel and patch it all up there, and then it could actually physically fit in there. We could start working that center console. Starting off with some cardboard here. I thought about modifying the old one, but it needs so much cut out of it that it seems like it would make sense to start over and redo things a little bit more. So you can see here, this is what our design looks like so far. Just got a hole for the shifter, and I think I'm going to make a little indent here for your seat to go forward a little bit further. It's down here we have a little cutout here for the parking brake, so that way you can actually open that up all the way. And you've got to kind of have like an indent here for it, so I made a little gap there, that way I can actually reach my hand inside of there. And I think that this piece is going to drop off here and go straight down after that. At least that's my thought right now. And one of the main reasons why we're doing this here is for cup holders. Let's be honest, that's the main reason why I'm doing this whole thing. And also, it's unsightly seeing the rug underneath here that's all kind of torn up there. So we're just going to cover it up. We're not going to look at it. And no one's going to know that I destroyed this pristine 1982 Grand Prix rug. And no one can get upset about that with me. So this is kind of the idea right here. And I'll have cup holders up here, I think, somewhere. That's the general idea right now. So I'll have two cup holders here. I'm going to move the switch panel back here and just kind of place it this spot here. So it'll be, here's some old switches here. So that's some extra housings. So the whole switch panel there is going to come back here. And that way I can easily get to it here with my hands while I'm driving. That way I don't have to reach all the way up here and try and reach for those handles. So that's the plan for that. And then I'm going to try and reuse this old center console lid. This is from like a Chevy Cruze. I thought it's kind of cool because these things will extend out, so that's pretty neat. They just kind of slide out there, so I like that a lot actually from the Chevy Cruzes. So I think I'm going to try and use that here too again, and just lay it back here. Then I'll have an armrest too. So that's the plan there for that. Alright, so I've gone ahead and started cutting out my template here. I did want to make sure this is all square, so I brought the drywall square just to make sure my measurements are all correct here. So I know we're looking at a foot up top here, so I went over to about a foot here with this, which is really right about right there or so. And just drew that line on this right hand side there for the top part. And then I know for the bottom half here, we're looking at 7¼ inches, which means we have 4.75 inches of extra there. So 2 3/8 on each side there. So I just brought this over to 2 3/8 in this one, which is right about right there. So that should be our correct measurements here. Should make this nice and square, hopefully. And we're gonna model the rest of this after this template here. The biggest thing I wanna do is make sure this is symmetrical. So I'm just gonna try and make sure I do that properly. All right, so I think I've got my template transferred the way I want it. I've marked off where the console goes underneath the dashboard right here. So that's that mark there. This is where the curve ends. This is where the curve starts. Going to be using this one here and kind of curving it like that. And on the other side, you can see that one there too as well. Here's a shifter hole. I've marked the center of the shifter, and we're just going to go around with that with a hole saw. Hopefully I have the right size for that. And then down here, here's a parking brake cut out there. So here's an example of why you measure twice before you go ahead and cut. And then here's the other part of that parking brake cut out as well too. So here's the first test fit. We have this thing kind of sitting in here. I think it needs to go a little bit more to the left. So looking good so far, actually, you know, all things considered. I'll probably have to cut some more out of the shifter hole for that. But checking clearances, this looks about right where I want it for the most part. Shifter handle looks good. Parking brake handle looks all right too as well. Then I guess the next thing I'll do here is test fit cup holders. Figure out how deep this thing needs to be and how tall it needs to be. And we'll cut some sides for this too as well. Then back here I'll have plenty of room for the center console thing I'm doing, which is going to be actually up right about that high. I don't know, this is why we're test fitting though. Gonna try some things out and see how this goes. I'm definitely gonna have to cut some more off of this shifter area though. I think I've decided here that I want to move the radio, and you know, what if I just grab this guy here and, you know, put her down here. Whoa, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know why I never did this before. For some reason I thought this was like very integral and part of the car, this stereo here. I mean, yeah, it does match this knob here, but some of the later cars don't even have this one. They have a din and a half, which comes out about a little bit taller up there, so I'm okay with that. I think I'm going to do that. I'm just going to pull this guy out here. These black pieces here are not part of this trim piece at all too, so I'm even more comfortable with doing this now because of that. For some reason I always thought they were part of here, and I pulled this off like 5 times now, this trim piece, so I should know better now. But I don't know why I just kept thinking about this being a part of this trim piece, so I'm just going to pull the old radio out here and replace it with a new one. It is smaller than the old one, so I'm going to have to make my own mounts for it, and also have some sort of trim piece that covers that too as well. And I think I'm just going to reuse some of the plastic I had before, and hopefully that fits that properly. Alright, so I've got my cup holders in here now, so I can actually finally figure out how tall this needs to be. And next thing I'm going to do here is kind of set my height with this. I'm going to build out these side panels here, and they're going to really hug the side of this console and go all the way to the floor. This is going to be the main support here, so I've got one for each side. And I'm probably going to revise this little swoop here, but this is going to kind of curve down here and look pretty cool here. Then that face of this will be just flat there, and it'll be recessed behind that, so that'll be pretty cool. I've got the side panel pieces built now and installed, and I've glued them all together here. Kind of a pain in the butt there to get that all settled with even with 2 hands, so you know, trying to film that would kind of suck. Working on the side pieces now here to try and get this supported. You can see here we have still a bit of a gap down here that I need to kind of, you know, I need to support this side, otherwise this is going to be pretty flimsy. But the challenge here comes with getting the right angle here and the right depth of all this stuff. Alright, so here's my piece of CAD here. We're gonna kind of cut it based off of this. You can see it comes down pretty far. I think I might come in just a little bit with that. But we're going to start with this. You can always take material off. Adding more on is difficult. That's about the depth we're going to be at. Alright, got the new piece cut here. It seems to fit pretty well. You know, the tighter the fit, the better actually, because then we're actually putting some pressure in the floor, and that would be good because it's pretty unsupported otherwise. So I think I'm going to attach it like that. I'm going to glue it down and then nail it down. Actually, I think I might cut off a little bit off of here too as well. That way we can get our next piece in here. So maybe just cut her off right there. So I finally got all the sides on. I started working on the lid here for the center console as well too. I made like a little ramp to it here, so that way it kind of ramps up into that. Right now the armrest is all the way out there, that way, so I can let the glue sit there. There's really no nails here holding this on at all right now, so I'm going to rely on the glue to hold it all together. And you know, wood glue makes sense, so hopefully that'll work out pretty well. But yeah, it's coming along. It's starting to look like a real thing here. I'm getting to the point here where I'm almost ready to start wrapping it with fabric. One of the next things I need to do here though is add little holes for the speakers, so we'll do that there too. That way we're not using these ugly boxes anymore that have gotten wet. So we're gonna just dump these things out and reuse those speakers. But yeah, she's looking good though. I'm happy with the placement so far, especially of the armrest deal. Eventually I need to find a way to actually hold it down. Right now it's just kind of hanging in here, and this thing is just resting in there. Eventually I'll put like a screw here or something to kind of grab onto that latch. It's kind of a cheesy design, but you know, I'm not too picky about this right now. This is gonna be pretty sweet. Cup holders, it's got them, so we've got all the necessities and we're coming along here. So there you go, cup holders. Not one, but two. Alright, so I'm gonna work on getting the stereo in the car, and this is the spot where it's gonna go, right back where the old stereo went here. And I'm going to take some measurements here off of the old stereo. Basically, we need to make this stereo fit in this one spot. And we have some pieces here that I have from when the stereo was mounted before. And this is already created for me. So I did this already when I did this the last time, so this is already good to go. So I can just go ahead and slide this guy in here, and it'll slide up here, and that will mount it basically on the car. So I'm gonna try and reuse that piece here, and this one is a little bit smaller than we need it to be, at least on the right side. The left side is more than enough space there. So we're looking to go up to 9 5/8 of an inch here. The head unit up here is 7 inches right there, and so that means we need to have 1 5/16 inches around it here. So you can see here, this only has about 3/4 of an inch there or so, give or take a little bit. But you know, also we do need to come out a little bit there too as well. That ends up being about 3/4 inches from that mounting surface to the top of this. So we do have some space to work with here. And so I think what I'm gonna do here is I'll weld a piece on this backside here and have that extend out there. And then we'll have a piece of plastic that fits on top of here that you won't see, that it doesn't extend all the way out there. So that's the plan. In fact, I could probably even use that piece down there actually, maybe. So we have a little bit more space there. I'll measure that out there, and I think we're gonna basically weld a flat piece in the bottom of this, have that go that way as much as we need to, maybe even just bend that tab there, I don't know. Then we'll cut this side, weld a piece in the back of this as well too, and that'll give us pretty close to the depth we're looking for. And I think it's gonna be pretty darn close, almost spot on here. So this is looking good actually. Alright, so I've got the piece all welded up here now, and now I can go ahead and start drilling this. So what I did here is I just put this next to the other one there and marked the holes vertically. So the horizontal line you see there for the vertical marking, and then I went and measured it in the car. Looks like the bolts are spaced out 9 1/4 inches or so, and we're at about 9 1/2 inches here, so we're gonna go 1/8 inch inside of this. So that's where that marking is up top there. So it's gonna be pretty tight. Same thing on the other side, 1/8 inch there. So even if this does kind of fall off the edge of that, that's okay because it's going to hold this tight no matter what. So really just for locating this is what these bolt holes are for. At least that's what they're going to be for now. So just going to go ahead and drill them out and see if we can do a test fit. All right, moment of truth. See if she actually fits. Gonna have to try and dig up some screws somewhere. That hole is lined up. Those holes line up all right. Where are we at on this side? Oh man, it's gonna be good. Oh, it's gonna be good. All right, I'm gonna get some screws and try and put her in. Yeah, it is looking good. Screw holes are not looking amazing, but it's holding it and it's tight. So I think we're gonna call this a win. Now we're just gonna put on the bezel, see how it looks. Obviously, it's gonna look pretty out of place here. I'm a little worried it's gonna be crooked, but I also don't care that much right now. This is just version 1.0. Oh yeah, that's pretty good. Yep, I like it. I'm about it. This is gonna work. And then you can always swap out the radio afterward too, so that'll be sweet. So I'm doing a test fit here of the trim panel, and this just happens to be super tight, especially on top there. The bottom looks pretty good as far as clearance goes, but man, this is pretty lucky that this worked out as well as it did so far here. Now I do need to get a trim panel behind this here to kind of cover up these screw holes and all those holes there. So I've got some plastic I'm going to work with for that. Okay, got that trim panel on there, and it's not looking too bad actually. The biggest issue here is that you see these screws here, and I'm going to solve that like right now, and that'll be a pretty quick fix here and pretty easy fix. I'll pull you back off here. Great, and I'm going to try and solve that problem right now. Sharpie to the rescue. Try and get just the screw. Alright, well, spray paint would be better, but I don't want to do that here. It's too hot outside to open the garage door for spray paint. The nice thing about having an attached garage is that your house has air conditioning. You can just rob it off the house. That's looking pretty good. I was worried about the climate control not fitting properly, but we're looking good. This is going to be good. Oh yeah. This is good. I like it a lot. I'm happy with that. Yeah, someday I'll fix the blue around the gauges. Not today though. Alright, gonna screw stuff back down and call that good. She's already plugged in, so we're good to go on that. Now it's time for the center console. So one of the next things I needed to do here was get the parking brake working. It really has not been working since I did the disc brake swap from the LS1 brakes from the Camaros. And there's not really a good kit out there I could find, and I'm not really sure what else you can do for these things out there. I found a kit from Summit. It's a universal kit. It's kind of what you're looking at here. It comes with these clips, and they kind of fit over the little handle thing on those, and they are smaller than the actual handle is, so you have to kind of cut them out a little bit. I made these brackets for it so that way they would actually sit in there properly. And once you drill a few holes in them, you can kind of file them out and make them actually fit in there. That's a matter of running your parking brake cables, and they have to come meet somewhere, so I made a bracket so they can meet together, and then it would get pulled in through the car that way. Running with a stick shift transmission, you've got to have a parking brake. It's really a necessity unless you have some other way of locking up the wheels. You don't want to leave your car in gear. If somebody hits you, it could damage something, and if your car starts rolling from that. So you don't really want to do that if you can avoid it. At least that's what I'm told. So having a parking brake is ideal. This situation here, probably not really worth showing. It didn't really work out that well, honestly. It's really just because I couldn't get ferrules that were good enough to really allow me to wrench in these things. These cables, they've got a lot of force in them, right? So it's a real pain to find something that can actually take that kind of force with it. So that's the biggest downfall of the system. It works kind of for now, but I still leave the car in gear on hills and stuff. Again, probably not ideal. I'm not really sure, honestly, but I could see why it could be an issue. So I'll revisit this again eventually here. Maybe just try and get the stock brake cables for these cars, for that Camaro. You can't find them online anywhere though. I don't know what the part number is for those, or if they even make it anywhere. So I have to go to the junkyard to try and find those things to make them fit there. So that's kind of the hassle I'm running through here. But otherwise though, this kind of worked out. It's at least temporary for now, and it should be okay. So I'm trying to bundle some things up here, make this all a little bit neater. And going to be going ahead and using some harnesses too. So I've done a few of them here already. This is a 5-pin harness for the OBD2 ports. So I've got some a couple of OBD2 ports here, and I can just easily remove all of them now with this harness. Probably not one-handed, but really sweet harnesses. These are almost like a weather pack type deal. They have little seals there in these, so that's really cool. And so I've got that going for those. I'm going to use these harnesses anywhere it makes sense. So that switch panel there, it's gonna get that's actually gonna get modified. We're gonna add a couple new switches to that one because we're adding a few new things to the car. So 2-step launch control, something we're gonna put on here. Also a scramble button for the boost controller, and the line lock is going to be on there too. And I'm going to consolidate that wiring there into one harness. That way it's going to be easy to pull out that whole switch panel in the future instead of having to deal with all those little wires there that you have no idea where they go to. I really enjoy wiring. It's kind of fun, but it's not really glamorous. It's very boring to watch, I'm sure. So I won't film much of this here. I'm just going to go ahead and get this started there. But here's the rat's nest that you're seeing right now, and this is just going to be cleaned up here hopefully pretty soon. And here's all the new harness packs here, so really cool. Not too expensive. I think this is like 20 bucks, maybe 30, I'm not sure. The harnesses are really useful for at least bundling the wires together so you know where they're going. So that's half the reason why I'm doing that. You know, it's hard to put this stuff together for a car that was not intended for that, unless you were getting those harnesses somewhere that you know, from the junkyard or something like that, and drilling the holes to the firewall and making sure they're cut properly to the right size. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So we'll clean this up here, we'll make it look good, and get started on that. So these are the two other things we're going to power in the car that do need some wiring here. This right here is called a WOT box, or a watt box, or a wide open throttle box, depending on who you ask. This here is basically anti-lag for the car. It's going to cut ignition time, or it's going to cut all ignition power there momentarily as you hit a certain rev limit. Here's a harness for that. So this is going to be plugged in here as well too. I do just need to find a spot for that here, and to get this plugged in there. Then we have roll control going in there as well too. So the theme here was to really simplify things as much as possible and get rid of all of the old unnecessary wires that we're not using anymore. We had an automatic transmission before that was computer controlled, but now we're using a stick shift, so no longer need a lot of these wires for the transmission, so I could pull out a lot of the old stuff there. So I had to unpin the harness on the PCM for those wires that were for the transmission before, since we're not using any of those now, so we don't need a lot of these wires anymore. And plus, it's such a mess in the car, you've got to really take out a lot of that stuff there to make this a bit more easy to simplify. Honestly, the whole car could probably use a whole rewire here. I did this probably 7 years ago now, since I did this project. It's maybe been longer, I'm not sure. It's seen a lot of different changes here as well too, and eventually here I'm going to switch to a whole new computer system, and then won't have to deal with a lot of this stuff. And then once I do that, I'm just going to rewire the whole thing and cut out a lot of these wires. So I put some effort into this. It's not really a lot you're going to see here, but it's at least something that was done. The next thing I wanted to add here for a power tour was the line lock. And if you've ever been to a power tour, you know it. The hotels are just a freaking party of burnouts some nights. So I want to be able to participate this year if I could, so I installed a line lock on the car. And you know, it kind of worked out all right. I had some other issues this year. You'll hear about that later, but otherwise it was a pretty successful install for the most part. That being done, it was time to bleed the brakes. All right, so I'm going to bleed the brake lines in the back of the car. I don't think I need to touch the fronts at all. And to do that, I'm going to use a vacuum bleeder because that's just me here, and I don't have anyone else to hold the brake pedal down and do this. So I bleed off and make some pressure. I have this kind of proper that should go ahead and start doing that. And as it pulls fluid through the line, it's going to release some pressure out. So today we're going to be working on the wastegate springs. Going to try and swap those out to these smaller ones. We have about 10 psi springs in here right now. We're going to switch over to a few 6-pound springs. And that's going to give us a lower starting point for the boost controller, so that way we can keep the boost down pretty low. The 6-pound spring is going to set this at right about at 10 psi or so. So not too heavy, pretty low boost level, very safe, obviously. And you know, we can always ramp up that boost there. I think we can hit 20 psi with the boost controller on top of that, so that'll be really cool to do there. We do need to take out the wastegates here. And if, you know, pro tip here, if you're actually adding wastegates to your car, put them somewhere that you can access them, and put them somewhere that they're going to get exhaust directly into those. Don't make them off of a 90-degree T like what I have down here. So you can see that the pipe goes down that way, and this one tees off and goes up this way, kind of in the opposite direction. Exhaust gas is never going to flow up this way easily. Maybe with enough pressure it would, but this is not an ideal setup here. And that causes that crazy boost creep I've got going on in this car. So we're going to go ahead and swap out these springs. This wastegate has to come out to do that. This one I can do that in the car for, because that wastegate spring is going to be so light. But I do need to pull off this intake off of here, this intake tube. And that shouldn't be a big deal here. So I'm going to go ahead and get to work, get it done. Alright, got the first wastegate spring out here. You can see here, this is one of the larger ones. And for a while there, I ran the larger ones with the smaller ones too as well, to kind of give you a bit more boost pressure. This large one here is supposed to be like a 10-pound spring, but I'm seeing like 18 psi with this, so it's a little bit more than I want for a sort of a baseline or a minimum threshold. So I'm just going to pull her back out here and get ready to install a new one. New spring is a little bit softer, so this is going to be a lot easier to install. It's just a 5-pound spring, very basic. And go ahead and check our top here, that looks good. Alrighty, and just go ahead and throw her on there. And then, yeah, that's a really easy to push down there. So you gotta be careful when you're putting these things on here, that way you don't strip the threads. So I'm gonna need 2 hands for this, but basically the idea here is get a couple bolts on there, at least 2, and then you can let go of this thing. You've got to hold it on there pretty strong though otherwise. But I'll show you a trick for this other one once we get the other one off. Alright, I've got the wastegate pulled out of the car, and this is how I'm going to take the spring out of here. I'm going to go ahead and clamp it down in a C-clamp inside of a vise. And that will hold the C-clamp and keep this spring compressed here. So you'll just put a little bit of pressure in there, that way it opens up a little bit. And then you're no longer pressing against the spring here or fighting the spring on these threads. You can just go ahead and run them out. And this keeps the pressure off of those screws while you're unscrewing it. I'm just going to make sure it's not falling off of here, make sure it's still centered. It'll have a tendency to move otherwise. All right, and now hopefully it doesn't actually get loose too much here. I'm going to hold this with my hand like this and then start loosening this thing up. Go ahead and put the new one back in, and same thing as before. This time will be a lot easier. Should be no effort with this at all. Alright, I've got 2 of them on here, and we're good to go ahead. We can start releasing this and just start screwing the rest of them down. Alright, so I went ahead and confirmed with the instructions online. Port number 1, this is going to go to our turbo. We have that fitting right there that it's going to plumb into. And we're just going to tee off of that line that's already there and grab some of that air coming out of that. So that will go to fitting number 1 here on this side. Fitting number 3 will be just vented to atmosphere. Number 2 is actually going to go to both wastegates, so we're going to tee it off of that on the flip side of that. So let's go ahead and get that started. Alright, so I've got this thing finally set here. I decided to bolt it onto the turbo. There is this little mounting point there. It's a really tight fit.
but it's good enough here. Hoses aren't kinked too much here. That should flow pretty well. As soon as this starts seeing boost here, this is going to expand. We're good in plumbing. Now we can go ahead and wire this thing up. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that and knock that out, and we'll be all done with this part. Let's go ahead and give the car some power and see what happens. Make sure we don't burn it down. Alrighty. We got a spark. That's not good. Usually a spark indicates you've got something that's draining your power like that. The lights are not on, so that's not what we want to see. This is just temporary. We're not going to fire this up or anything. I just want to see what turns on. Yeah, lights aren't on. I'm not sure why. I think I need to trace out a power leak of some sort. Hey, car's got power. Well, I kind of just want to fire it up and see what happens, honestly. So this should do nothing right now. Get it out of gear. Yep, nothing. But I put this down and we should fire up. Oh man, we're in gear. Alright, it's time to go ahead and put a new tune in the car. I already got it in run there. Got my power tuner connected. We have a signal here. Got some flash in here. Gonna go ahead and plug her into the car. Then next thing to do is figure out which comm signal it's on, which comm port it's on. So we'll go to hardware manager or device manager. Figure out which one it's on. We're on comm port number 3. Alright, let's double check here that we are using that one. COM port 3. Okay, perfect. We're good to go. Yes. Okay, I got it, dude. Leave me alone. Alright, gonna flash the new tune in the car. We can do it quick right here with this one. And pick out the right one here. Good to organize your bin files. Alright, we're gonna do a partial right, so this should be really quick here. And see if we have any sort of errors here. Got good voltage, man. Look at that, 13.7 volts. It's really good. Usually at the PCM you'll see a lot less than that. Basically, we're tuning it for the manual transmission. We took out a lot of the torque converter stuff, or I took out a lot of the stuff for the transmission. I told the car it's a manual and you don't control it anymore. It's going to do its own thing. And that should get rid of all the codes we have so far. And if we get some more, we can go ahead and just pop them out and remove them as they come up here, just in case I forgot some. Alright, check engine light's still there. Also deleted code 300, which is the misfire code. That way, when it sees misfires from the watt box or the two-step, it won't actually freak out too much. Alright, so we're going to give it a few seconds here, and then crank her back on here probably. And see if she runs a little bit better. I'm hoping it runs a little bit better. Actually, the next thing I want to do here is come over here and well, I'm going to leave this plugged in. I'm going to plug in this thing here, the watt box, and see what we have for configuration of that. Alright, got our software up here. Okay. COM port 4. Yay. Cool. Cool. Alright, we'll go ahead and read it here. Cool. Alright, so knows the clutch is up now. Knows the throttle is up now. just going to go ahead and apply the throttle here and read it again. Right, yep, it knows it's down. Read it again. Clutch should be down now. Right, so it doesn't like my clutch signal. Alright, well I think I need to tweak some of the settings here with the clutch pedal, because I can't tell that it's down, and it's only reading like 1 volt when it's all the way down. So it's all the way down right now, and it'll watch this change from 0.2 to basically 1 volt. I should be reading 12 volts there instead. If I try and rev it up here, should not hit 2000. Yeah, that kind of worked. Yeah, we need a lot of. We're gonna have to test this in the street, you guys. I think. I don't want to upset all the neighbors, so I'm just gonna stop it right there and call it good for now. But this is working somewhat. I'll check the clutch signal here. Go from there. Sweet, sweet, looking good. Happy with what I'm seeing so far. No codes either through the service, the code. No check engine light either, so we're looking good so far. Kill it. Alright, we're gonna call it there for now and work on some other stuff. So I got the center console installed finally. I put some padding on it, put some carpet on it. It could be better. I have some staples that are exposed here that I probably could have covered up a little bit better. But I think from the driver's angle and being in the dark here, down so low, you're not gonna notice it too much. And otherwise, though, I'm really proud of this thing. Actually, it looks pretty good. I like the shifter boot here. That's really sweet here. It basically is just stapled around the corners here inside of that thing, and that's kind of what's holding it together there. So there's some small gaps there that you're not going to see. And then for the corners, I put some screws in there with some washers to help hold it in there and those strong spots there. And boost controller sitting up there. I have the wide open throttle box sitting there too as well. For now, I might find a better spot for that too. And I'm debating putting those OBD2 ports I have down here somewhere up top here, but I think it's just going to look too hokey, so I might just screw them to the side of that thing. I'm not sure. Speakers still need to go in there. Center console is kind of done here as well too. At least, I mean, the lid here. That's just going to sit there basically, and I'll put a screw here. That way it can actually latch down properly. And switch panels are in now too as well. They even sound better in this box here, so that's cool. This is still exposed here. That's not a big deal though. Otherwise, you know, this is way better than anything I've made before for a center console. Man, imagine if I actually had tools and could actually do this stuff properly and put some time and money into this. I've got probably $30 into the center console right now, so pretty cheap and not too expensive. Just a lot of time, basically. And you know, once the speakers go in here, I think they're going to fit nicely. I had to drill some 4-inch holes for these, had a hole saw for that, and this is going to be looking pretty good. And the speakers shouldn't sound too bad here in this. You know, it's not a sealed box or anything like that, but you know, compared to door panels, it's probably pretty good. I think. We'll see. You know, this is way better than the old one, I think. And the shifter boot, man, that thing makes this look come out nice, and the cup holders. This is good, and I like having the switches so close to me. So as I'm sitting here, I can just come down here with my hand on the armrest here. I can just come down here. I can turn on the fans if I need to. Fan 1 and fan 2. This is for the boost controller. So if I want to add more boost, just hit this switch right here. That switches it to boost mode 2. Scramble button basically. This one is for the anti-lag. This one's for roll control. And this is the cruise here. So this is going to be the most comfortable one to hit. So I can just hit the cruise up and down here while I'm driving, assuming that the cruise works, because that lever doesn't work for that cruise control module. Someday I'll replace it, but this is still pretty cool though. The switches down here, and that's pretty sweet. Right now I do have this wire hanging out here for the wideband sensor, but I might just tuck this in here and just pull it out whenever I need it. So I might just do that there for that. Kind of a hidden little trick there. That's cool. Yeah, I'm happy with this so far. This is really good. Really good.